Welcome into Starting Five here on the Five Reasons YouTube channel. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at Five Reasons Sports. Our producer today is Manny Chang. We got two great sponsors. One of them is Prize Picks. Make sure you use the code 5 FIVE. Put down $5. You get $50 to play right away. Of course, this is Daily Fantasy Simplified, legal in the state of Florida. Play between 2 and 4 players together across the sports spectrum. You can play NHL, NFL, NBA, or any of the other sports. Toby took advantage of Mike Tyson throwing at least half a punch over the weekend. Again, go to Prize Picks, use the code FIVE. Also sponsored by U Break Wheel Fix. You can find them with the ubreakwheelfix.com, or in North Miami. Get your wheels fixed. We know the roads of South Florida very unforgiving, but also they do the cool powder coating here, the colors, all that kind of stuff. You want to get heat colors, dolphin colors, you can do it down there at U Break Wheel Fix. If you mention 5 Reasons or 5RSN to Mark and his team, you get 5.5% off your entire order. So check them out. U Break Wheel Fix. Again, that's with you at the front, ubreakwheelfix.com, or just check them out in North Miami. It's 305-748-0112. All right, well, so a double sports day yesterday. The Heat and the Dolphins. A bit of a surprise here. Dolphins now have a better record than the Heat. The Heat are 4-6 as they head home. The Dolphins are 5-6 as they stay home. They're going. Oh, excuse me. No, I'm sorry. They're 4-6. What am I doing here? Yeah, no, the Heat are 5-7. I'm sorry, and the Dolphins. So they're the same record. They're the same record virtually as we get off to a good start on a Monday morning. Anyway, I didn't expect the Heat and the Dolphins to be in this position where they're virtually the same at this point. So that's basically the purpose of this. But we're going to talk Dolphins today, and we're going to talk specifically about how they've kind of changed the way that they're playing. So we've got sort of like 3 points to this season. You come off of last season, offensively, one of the best teams in the league, but very reliant on the big play. Mike McDaniel not staying with the run hurt them late in the season, particularly in the cold weather games. We saw it in Kansas City last year. We saw it in Buffalo in the playoffs the year before, but also in Buffalo in the regular season, where essentially if Miami can't run the ball, their defense not good enough to stay up with the other team, totally relying on the big play, and sometimes those don't come. And we saw, even with Tyreek Hill challenging 2,000 yards last year, again, that the Dolphins petered out at the end of the season. So then you start this season, and again, it's kind of been in 3 parts. The first part of the season, you have them kind of working into things after training camp, and it looked like they didn't go hard enough in training camp, to be honest. And they had that Buffalo game where before even Tua got hurt, they did not look right. Um, Tua had the 3 interceptions, 2 of them not really his fault necessarily. One of them was, but he wasn't sharp. The team wasn't sharp. Didn't look like they had any kind of an identity. Thought that finally they would get to a position where they could pass Buffalo, and that was not the case. And of course, now we've seen the Bills have emerged as essentially the best team in the AFC now that they've beaten the Chiefs. So then, of course, you have Tua get hurt, and this is where I can't really forgive the front office for this, even if the team rallies a little bit this year, because they're in the position they're in because they didn't cover themselves a backup quarterback. Chris Greer did not get a player who could play in the NFL to play behind Tua. Skylar Thompson wasn't it. Then, of course, they had to go get Huntley in a trade. And then they had to go get or prime off the practice squad. And then they had to go get they had to play Boyle. Okay. So essentially you're starting 3 guys who at this point, and Huntley may be a borderline NFL quarterback, but again, not without being in the system for a while. And so you had 3 guys who were not ready to play. And essentially, you drop at least 1, probably 2 games that you would have gotten if you just had competent quarterback play. I'm not even talking about Tua, but I'm just talking about somebody who belonged in the NFL. And we talked about that before the season. We said this was going to be their Achilles heel. They couldn't count on Tua to play all 17 again. You can't count on any quarterback. This is not necessarily just a reflection of Tua, even though obviously he's more prone in certain areas, particularly with concussions. That no quarterback can be counted on to play all 17 games. It just doesn't happen that often. There's always basically 2 hands of quarterbacks who do that in a given year, and that's if you're lucky. Okay, so they didn't protect themselves, and if they had, they would be in a much better position right now before the Patriots come in. And of course, they're 4-6. I'm sorry, I jumped the gun a little bit with 5-6, but they are playing the Patriots at home, and then of course they go to Green Bay after that. So you had that part of the season, the second part of the season where they were totally incompetent. And you combine those 2 parts of the season, and through 7 games, they scored a total of 70 points. Total. Okay. And now you have the third part of the season. And I think people thought that if Tua was going to come back, that maybe they would get back to sort of bombs away, right? Lots of chunk plays, that kind of stuff, the occasional mistakes. The stuff that has marked the Tua era, for better or worse, okay? That essentially, as much as everybody's talked about him being a dink and dunk specialist, that's not really what the numbers have suggested. Not with air yards, not with yards per attempt or completion or any of that kind of stuff, right? Okay. So he comes back, and they're not playing that way. They're playing ball control through the passing game. And I don't think anybody necessarily saw that coming. Now, you look at the points that they put up now, okay? So it was 27, 27, 23, yesterday 34. So they're averaging virtually 28 points a game since Tua returned. You'll take that. I mean, if you have a defense worth anything, that should be enough to win the majority of your games. But they're doing it in a way that's less risk. Now, the only risk to what they're doing is they're running these long drives. And so they're with more plays, there's more opportunity for something to go wrong, but they're not taking the kind of chances that are going to cause that many things to go wrong. And Tua looks comfortable in this. And it kind of looks like they finally just basically, or Tua has finally accepted the fact that, okay, it doesn't matter what they say about me. I'm going to do what's best to sort of manage this team. I don't care if they call me a game manager, even if it wasn't true before, maybe it'll be true now. And again, maybe we'll win more. So I like what they're doing right now. And the question is, can they sustain it? Can they sustain it? Now, against New England, even with a rookie quarterback who's playing pretty well right now, you're not getting Jacoby Brissett this time. You're not getting Mac Jones. You're getting Drake May. He has looked, even Calais Campbell mentioned after the game yesterday. Obviously, they didn't have a chance to watch the game, but they saw some highlights. I did get a chance to see it. He looks fairly polished. And I mean, it looks like he knows what he's doing, which is something that we haven't seen from Patriot quarterbacks really since Brady. So there'll be a little bit more of a challenge there. But again, winnable game at home. And what we're looking at here is a team that has had to work around a variety of things that haven't gone right this year. One, Jalen Phillips comes back from injury, probably too soon, injures something else, now out for the season. Bradley Chubb has not come back. Okay. Javon Holland has had kind of an inconsistent season. Now you've got Fuller out the past couple of games. On the offensive side, okay, the fullback who they play through a lot through the running game. And you see that they're not doing quite as much between the tackles since Ingle got hurt, been out the past couple of games. So they've had some injuries to significant players that affect things that they try to do. So a couple of things here. One is I'm giving Tua some credit for adjusting. Okay. But also we've got to give McDaniel some credit for adjusting now too in ways that he hasn't prior. Because again, fans were saying he just needs to run the ball more, but he obviously feels there's a different way to get this done. And to his credit, to the team's credit, they have gotten it done the past couple of games. That game yesterday, okay, as opposed to some of the others in which they haven't been able to kind of put teams away, it didn't really feel like it was getting away. You know, you kind of felt like, okay, Tua will come out and lead them on another long drive. And that's what he did, of course, until Jonnu Smith popped open, nobody within 10 yards of him, and ended up making the big play. So I do think that this style of play is more sustainable than the we're going to try to get the big play all the time. And now you're seeing, and McDaniel mentioned it yesterday, that Smith is basically eating because of the way the teams are playing Hill and Waddle, that they're creating more space. They're creating more space for him. Now, I do think at some point they're going to need a Tyreek Hill game. Okay. We're talking about a guy who last year was on pace for most of the year for 2,000 yards. And this year, he's not on pace for 1,000 yards. I think he might have just ticked over yesterday, where now he's like on pace for like 970. Okay. And that's with him playing every game and not really missing as many series as he's missed previously. They are going to need, and we saw Waddle with a couple of catches yesterday that looks like maybe he's finding it a little bit. They're going to need Hill and Waddle to be dynamic when they have the opportunities, because that's the only thing that's going to keep defenses playing the way that they are. But again, I think this is more sustainable than what they were trying to do last year, which is okay. We're just going to get a big play and make up for everything in one play. And I just don't think that's the way that the modern NFL is operating right now. You look, a lot of teams are leaning much more on the run. We saw a Pittsburgh-Baltimore game yesterday that totaled 34 points. I think that things have started to swing back the other direction here a little bit. And again, I give McDaniel credit for what he's doing. Doesn't mean he's out of the woods yet. I never thought he would be fired after this season anyway. I think regardless of what happens with Greer, you're talking about probably one more year with McDaniel where either Greer or a new general manager evaluates him going forward. But look, they can't lose this game on Sunday. I don't think they will against New England. But the Packers are beatable. I mean, they're decent, but they're beatable. We've seen the NFC is better than the AFC this year. that has given the Dolphins a little bit of hope that they can squeeze in as a 7 seed here. And although I don't expect them to run the table or anything else that they were talking about, I don't think that they have that kind of dynamic talent right now available really on either side of the ball. But defensively, it does feel like Weaver is kind of stringing this together a little bit with smoke and mirrors, to mix my metaphors there. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that every week. They're getting great play out of Calais Campbell at age 38. When he and Sealer are together, they've done a terrific job in terms of dealing with other running backs. But again, I don't know that Weaver necessarily is going to be able to get that out of this group every single week. They don't have a ton of dynamic playmakers other than Ramsey, and I consider Sealer to be a playmaker too. But I do think that they can probably get to 9 wins. And if they get to 9 wins, if you look at the rest of the AFC, okay, and to get to 9 wins right now, what do they got to go 5-2 the rest of the way? If they get to 9 wins, I think they'll make it. I think they'll make the playoffs as a 7 seed. And then they'll likely be stuck playing against either Kansas City or Buffalo in the first round, and they'll likely get waxed, okay, even if this new style gives them a better chance. And then we're going to have the same conversations this offseason, and fans are going to say they should have just gotten the draft pick and all of that. But, okay, in the moment, I'll give McDaniel and Tua credit for adjusting the way that they're playing and trying to at least get this thing to the finish line where this season can be saved in some way. So that's where I'm at. All right, check out the rest of the content here on the network. Sorry for the slow start this morning. Again, appreciate Manny for producing. We've got 5 on the Floor live from last night. That's up. We've got the final yard of the Dolphins game. That's up. New Canes episode, I believe, is tonight. So check that out, 6 Rings Canes. And, of course, we'll have other Heat content during the week. Sixers at the Heat tonight. I'll be at that one. And also there's going to be a wrap-up of the Inter Miami season for the Messi and Company group. Thanks for joining this morning. Check out the rest of the content. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn the notifications on.